Emma Walker jolted awake as the plane hit turbulence, her head snapping up from where it had been resting, on a stranger's shoulder. Not just any stranger, the most intimidating man she'd ever laid eyes on, with sharp features, a perfectly tailored black suit, and dark eyes that examined her with unsettling intensity. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, mortified heat rushing to her cheeks. "I didn't mean to. Don't worry about it." His voice was deep, with a slight Italian accent. He straightened his suit jacket with a dismissive gesture. Emma tucked a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear, willing her heartbeat to slow. The last thing she needed was to make an enemy before even landing in Las Vegas. This rare weekend away from her responsibilities was supposed to be her first break in 3 years, since her 5-year-old daughter Lily was born and her husband walked out, claiming he wasn't ready for fatherhood. The stranger beside her returned to reading something on his tablet, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen him somewhere before. His presence commanded attention. People in nearby seats kept stealing glances at him, then quickly looking away when his gaze drifted in their direction. "First time in Vegas?" he asked unexpectedly, without looking up from his screen. "Is it that obvious?" Emma smiled nervously. "My best friend Mia is getting married tomorrow. I'm her maid of honor." He nodded, finally turning to face her. "Business for me. Always business." The announcement that they were beginning their descent into Las Vegas cut their conversation short. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Lily asking when Mummy's coming home. Told her Sunday. She's fine." Attached was a photo of her daughter's beaming face, chocolate ice cream smeared around her mouth. Emma's heart squeezed with both love and guilt. This weekend away had been Mia's idea, practically an intervention after 3 years of Emma doing nothing but working and parenting. "Beautiful child," the man commented, having glimpsed the photo. "Yours?" Emma nodded, surprised by his sudden interest. "Lily, she's 5. And her father?" "Not in the picture." Emma's tone made it clear the subject was closed. The man extended his hand. "Dominic Russo." The name sparked recognition. Dominic Russo, the hotel and casino magnate whose face occasionally graced business magazines. No wonder he looked familiar. What Emma didn't know was what whispers followed that name in certain circles, whispers about family connections that went back generations in the underworld of organized crime. "Emma Walker," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and lingered just a second too long. As they disembarked, Emma lost sight of Dominic in the crowd. She collected her small suitcase and headed for the taxi stand, already texting Mia that she'd landed. The desert heat hit her like a wall after the air-conditioned terminal. "Ms. Walker!" The voice behind her made her jump. Dominic Russo stood there, flanked by 2 broad-shouldered men in dark suits. "Where are you staying?" "The Bellagio," she answered automatically, then wondered if sharing that information with a stranger was wise, even if he was a famous businessman. What a coincidence. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "I own it." Before Emma could process this, one of Dominic's men took her suitcase and guided her toward a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly," she protested. "I insist," Dominic said, opening the door himself. "Consider it an apology for being your unwilling pillow on the flight." Something told Emma that Dominic Russo wasn't a man accustomed to hearing no, and the practical side of her noted that a free ride to her hotel would save her nearly $50 in taxi fare, money she could spend on a souvenir for Lily instead. "Thank you," she said, sliding into the luxurious vehicle. During the ride, Dominic received several calls, speaking in rapid Italian that Emma couldn't understand. The men with him, clearly security of some kind, maintained stoic expressions, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings even inside the vehicle. When they arrived at the Bellagio, the staff snapped to attention at Dominic's presence. The manager himself appeared, apologizing profusely for some issue Emma couldn't quite follow. Dominic waved away the apologies with an impatient gesture. "Ms. Walker is a personal guest," he informed the manager. "Upgrade her to a suite on the house." "Mr. Russo, that's really not necessary," Emma began. "I insist." Those 2 words again, delivered with finality. Before she could form a coherent objection, Emma found herself whisked to the 32nd floor, to a suite that was bigger than her entire apartment back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Las Vegas Strip, already coming alive as afternoon faded into evening. "Will there be anything else, Ms. Walker?" asked the bellhop who'd delivered her suitcase. "No, thank you." She pressed a $5 bill into his hand, a small tip, but all she could afford. Alone in the massive suite, Emma called her mother to check on Lily, then texted Mia, "You won't believe what just happened." She explained her unexpected encounter with Dominic Russo and the surprise upgrade. Mia's response came seconds later. "OMG, what? The Dominic Russo? Rumor has it he's connected, if you know what I mean. Be careful. But also, get it, girl. See you at dinner, 8 p.m. at Lago." Emma rolled her eyes at her friend's enthusiasm, but couldn't help feeling a flutter of excitement herself. After years of being nothing but Lily's mom and dedicated employee, the idea that someone like Dominic Russo had shown her even a moment's interest was what intoxicating. She unpacked her modest selection of clothes, suddenly feeling underdressed for a luxury suite. The black cocktail dress she'd brought for the wedding seemed woefully inadequate for dinner at a high-end restaurant. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Opening it, she found a hotel staff member holding a large flat box. "Delivery for you, Ms. Walker." Inside the box was a stunning emerald green evening gown with a note in bold masculine handwriting. "For dinner tonight. Join me at Lago, 7 p.m. DR." Emma stared at the dress, then at the note, her heart racing. How did he know about her dinner plans? The coincidence seemed too perfect. And how had he known her size? The rational part of her brain screamed caution, but a smaller, long-dormant part whispered excitement. She had come to Vegas for her best friend's wedding, to fulfill her duties as maid of honor, and maybe enjoy a brief escape from reality. She had not come to catch the attention of a powerful man, with secrets in his eyes, a man who seemed determined to pull her into his orbit. As Emma held the dress against herself in the mirror, she faced a choice that would alter the course of her life forever, though she couldn't possibly know that yet. What she did know was that in less than 24 hours, she would wake up with a wedding ring on her own finger, and the mysterious Dominic Russo would be calling her wife. Word count, 1,196. Wait, I'm still under the word count. Let me continue to complete this first block. Emma's phone rang. It was Mia. "Did you just get an insanely expensive dress delivered to your room?" her friend demanded without preamble. "How did you know that?" "Because everyone in our dinner party just got a call saying the reservation has been moved to a private dining room, courtesy of Dominic Russo." Mia's voice rose with each word. "Emma, what is going on? Did you know him before today?" "No. I literally just met him on the plane. I accidentally fell asleep on his shoulder." "And now he's sending you designer dresses and taking over our dinner plans? Emma, this is either the beginning of a fairy tale or a horror movie." Emma sank onto the edge of the massive bed. "It's probably just business networking or something. He probably does this kind of thing all the time. With single mums he meets on planes. I doubt it. Look, we're all curious now. The girls are saying we should go along with it. It'll make for a great story regardless." After hanging up, Emma stared at the dress again. The practical, cautious part of her, the part that had gotten her through the past 3 years as a single mother, said to return the dress and decline the invitation. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, urged her to take a chance, just once, just for this weekend. With trembling fingers, she texted her mother again. "Vegas is crazy already, might be out late tonight. Give Lily extra kisses from me." In the luxurious bathroom, Emma took her time getting ready, applying makeup with more care than she had in years. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting curves she usually kept hidden under practical work clothes. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. A confident, glamorous stranger with bright eyes and flushed cheeks. At 6:55 p.m., another knock came at her door. One of Dominic's security men stood there. "Miss Walker, Mr. Russo sent me to escort you." The restaurant was on the same floor as her suite. As they approached, Emma spotted Mia and the other bridesmaids waiting outside. Their eyes widened as they saw her approach in the emerald gown. "Holy shit, Em," Mia whispered, embracing her. "You look amazing." Before Emma could respond, the restaurant manager approached. "Mr. Russo is waiting in the private dining room. If you'll all follow me." The room offered a stunning view of the Bellagio fountains. Dominic stood as they entered, his dark eyes finding Emma immediately. He'd changed into a different suit, this one a deep charcoal that emphasized his broad shoulders. Two other men were with him, business associates based on their attire and demeanor. "Ladies," Dominic greeted them, but his gaze remained fixed on Emma. "Thank you for allowing me to join your celebration." Dinner was a surreal experience. Dominic was the perfect host, charming, attentive, ensuring everyone's glasses remained full of expensive champagne. Occasionally, his security detail would approach, whispering something in his ear, and he would excuse himself briefly. During these moments, Mia and the other women would lean in, peppering Emma with questions she couldn't answer. "I don't know why he's interested," she whispered for the dozenth time. "Maybe he's just being nice." "Men like that aren't just nice," said Rachel, another bridesmaid. "They want something." As the evening progressed and the champagne flowed, Emma felt herself relaxing, laughing more freely than she had in years. Dominic's hand occasionally brushed hers, each contact sending electricity through her body. Once, when their eyes met over dessert, the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. After dinner, Dominic suggested they continue the celebration at a club in his casino. Mia, already tipsy and delighted by the VIP treatment, eagerly agreed on behalf of the group. The club was a sensory overload: lights, music, beautiful people moving like one organism on the dance floor. Their group was escorted to a roped-off VIP section overlooking the main floor. "Dance with me," Dominic said in Emma's ear, his breath warm against her skin. On the dance floor, his hand at the small of her back guided her close to him. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd danced, but her body remembered the rhythm. In the flashing lights, with the bass pulsing through her veins and champagne clouding her judgment, she let herself melt against him. "You're full of surprises, Emma Walker," he murmured, his lips close to her ear to be heard over the music. "So are you, Mr. Russo." His dark eyes glittered. "Dominic," he corrected, "and I think this weekend is going to be full of surprises for both of us." As they swayed together in the pulsing heart of Las Vegas, Emma had no idea just how prophetic those words would prove to be. By sunrise, her life would be irrevocably changed, and the man holding her now would be the cause. The next morning, Emma awoke to a pounding headache and unfamiliar surroundings. Sunlight streamed through partially opened curtains, illuminating a room that was definitely not her Bellagio suite. This room was even more opulent, all cream and gold with a ceiling that seemed impossibly high. As consciousness fully returned, Emma became aware of three alarming facts in rapid succession. She was wearing only an oversized men's dress shirt. There was a heavy weight on her left hand, and she wasn't alone in the massive bed. Dominic Russo lay beside her, his bare chest rising and falling with deep, even breaths. The events of the previous night came back to her in disjointed flashes. More champagne after the club, moving to a private lounge, Dominic whispering something about his penthouse having a better view of the city. But it was the weight on her left hand that sent her heart into her throat. With mounting horror, Emma raised her hand to find a massive diamond ring alongside a platinum wedding band. The diamond caught the morning light, sending prisms dancing across the ceiling. "Oh my God," she whispered, the blood draining from her face. Beside her, Dominic stirred. His eyes opened, alert immediately, without the grogginess that clouded Emma's mind. His gaze fell on her face, then dropped to the ring on her finger. Something unreadable flickered across his features. "Good morning, Mrs. Russo," he said, his voice gravelly with sleep. Emma scrambled to sit up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "This isn't happening. Tell me this isn't happening." Dominic propped himself up on one elbow, watching her with those intense dark eyes. "I admit it wasn't how I typically conduct business." "Business?" Emma's voice rose an octave. "We got married. How drunk was I? I don't even remember." Her voice trailed off as she frantically searched her memory. There had been a chapel, hadn't there? White flowers, an Elvis impersonator, and Mia. Mia had been there, laughing, saying something about how Vegas was magical. "You weren't that drunk," Dominic said, sitting up fully now. "Neither was I, impulsive perhaps, but not incapacitated." Emma ran her hands through her tangled hair. "This is insane. We just met yesterday. I have a daughter, a job, a life back home. We need to get this annulled immediately." Something hardened in Dominic's expression. "That would be complicated." "What do you mean, complicated? We were drunk and made a mistake. People do it in Vegas all the time." Dominic reached for his phone on the nightstand and checked something before answering. "There are factors you're not aware of." A cold feeling settled in Emma's stomach. What factors? Instead of answering, Dominic rose from the bed, unself-conscious in just his boxer briefs, and walked to a closet larger than Emma's bedroom back home. He emerged moments later in a silk robe. "I'll have breakfast sent up. We should discuss this properly." "I don't want breakfast, I want answers." Emma's head throbbed with each elevated word. "Why did we get married last night? Was this some kind of joke?" Dominic's expression darkened. "I don't joke about marriage, Emma. In my family, it's a sacred institution." "Your family?" Emma repeated, feeling increasingly like she'd stepped into some alternate reality. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dominic crossed the room and opened it, speaking in low tones to someone outside. When he turned back, his expression was grave. "Get dressed, your friend Mia is here." 15 minutes later, showered and dressed in yesterday's clothes found scattered around the penthouse, Emma faced a red-eyed Mia in the suite's luxurious living room. Dominic had discreetly withdrawn to another room, giving them privacy. "What the hell happened last night?" Emma demanded. Mia looked miserable. "You don't remember any of it?" "I remember dancing, more champagne than snippets." "A chapel? Please tell me this isn't real." Emma thrust out her left hand, the diamond catching the light. Mia winced. "It's real. You and Mr. Tall, Dark and Dangerous got married at the little white chapel around 2 a.m. You seemed happy. Really happy, Em. I haven't seen you like that since before Lily was born. But why didn't you stop me? You're supposed to be my best friend." "I tried," Mia protested, "but you were so adamant. You kept saying life was too short to play it safe, that you were tired of being alone, that he made you feel alive again." She paused. "And honestly, Em, the way he looked at you, it wasn't just some drunk Vegas fling. That man was mesmerized by you." Emma sank onto the plush sofa, her legs suddenly weak. "This is a disaster. I don't even know him." "Well, here's what I do know," Mia said, lowering her voice. "One of the bridesmaids, Jen, her boyfriend works in finance. He says Dominic Russo isn't just rich. He's dynasty rich. Old money from Italy mixed with new money from his casino empire. And," she hesitated, "and what? There are rumors about his family's connections. Nothing concrete, nothing he's ever been implicated in personally, but—" "The Mafia," Emma whispered, the pieces clicking into place, the security detail, the way people deferred to him, the whispers that followed him. Mia nodded grimly. "Supposedly his grandfather was a major figure in the New York families before going legitimate with the casinos. But you know how these things work. Once you're in, you never really get out," Emma finished, feeling sick. "Oh God, what have I done?" "There's something else," Mia said, reaching for her friend's hand. "Your wedding. It wasn't just witnessed by Elvis and me. There were photographers. And this morning—" She pulled out her phone and opened a tabloid website. The headline screamed, "Casino King Dominic Russo weds mystery woman in Vegas shocker." Beneath it was a photo of Emma and Dominic outside the chapel, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. Emma looked happier than she'd been in years, her head thrown back in genuine joy. Dominic was looking at her with an expression that, even in her panicked state, made Emma's breath catch, a mixture of desire, triumph, and something that almost resembled tenderness. "It's everywhere," Mia said quietly. "Twitter, Instagram, news sites. Apparently Russo's love life has been tabloid fodder for years, and this surprise wedding is breaking the internet." Emma felt the room spinning. "My mother will see this. My boss. Everyone back home." The door to the adjoining room opened and Dominic stepped back in, now impeccably dressed in another perfectly tailored suit. Behind him were two men, one carrying a laptop, the other with the alertness of security. "Ms. Howard?" Dominic addressed Mia formally. "Would you excuse us? My attorney needs to speak with Emma." Mia looked uncertainly at Emma, who nodded weakly. "It's okay. I'll call you later." After Mia left, the man with the laptop sat opposite Emma. "Mrs. Russo, I'm Anthony Vega, Mr. Russo's personal attorney. We need to discuss the implications of last night's events." "The implications are that we made a drunken mistake that needs to be fixed," Emma said firmly, though her voice shook slightly. "I want an annulment." The attorney exchanged a glance with Dominic, who remained standing, his expression unreadable. "Unfortunately, it's not that simple," Vega began. "Mr. Russo's personal and business affairs are intertwined in complex ways. His marital status affects certain corporate holdings, family trusts, and international business arrangements. What does that mean in plain English? Emma demanded. Dominic finally spoke. It means that an immediate annulment would trigger a cascade of legal and financial consequences that would cost me billions and destabilize enterprises that employ thousands of people. Emma stared at him in disbelief. So what? I'm supposed to stay married to you, a complete stranger, because it's convenient for your business? Not forever, Vega interjected smoothly. Just until certain arrangements can be made. 6 months should be sufficient. 6 months? Emma nearly shouted. I have a life, a daughter. I can't play house with a casino mogul for 6 months. You and your daughter would want for nothing, Dominic said quietly. I would provide everything you could possibly need or desire. Lily would have the best education, the best opportunities. Don't, Emma cut him off, her voice dangerous. Don't you dare bring my daughter into this. Dominic's expression softened fractionally. I understand this is overwhelming, but there are benefits for you as well. Financial security for you and Lily, a substantial settlement when we do divorce, and all you have to do is maintain appearances for a short time. Emma felt trapped, cornered. And if I refuse, if I walk out that door right now and file for annulment myself? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did, a coldness that hadn't been there before. I wouldn't advise that, he said softly. The implied threat hung in the air between them. Emma thought of her daughter, of her modest apartment, of her struggling interior design business that barely covered their expenses. She thought of the photos already circulating online, the whispers about Dominic's family connections. I need to call my mother, she said finally. I need to make sure Lily is okay. Dominic nodded to the security man, who stepped outside. Of course, take all the time you need. But remember, Emma, what's done is done. The question now is how we move forward. Left alone, Emma's fingers trembled as she dialed her mother's number. To her relief, her mother hadn't seen the news yet. Their small town in Pennsylvania was still waking up, and her mother wasn't one for social media. Emma made up a story about the wedding festivities running late, promising to call again soon. When she ended the call, she found Dominic watching her from the doorway. You're afraid of me now, he observed, a hint of regret in his voice. That wasn't my intention. What was your intention? Emma asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Why me? You could have any woman in the world. Why pick a struggling single mom from Pennsylvania for this arrangement? Dominic crossed the room slowly, like a predator approaching skittish prey. He stopped before her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. Perhaps I was tired of women who only wanted my money or power, he said softly. Perhaps when you fell asleep on my shoulder, completely unguarded, completely yourself, I saw something genuine, something real. His fingers brushed her cheek, and despite herself, Emma felt that same electricity from the night before. Or perhaps, he continued, his voice dropping lower, I simply wanted you the moment I saw you, and Dominic Russo always gets what he wants. The raw honesty of this last statement hung between them, dangerous and alluring. Emma knew she should be running as far and as fast as possible from this man and the web he'd woven around her. Instead, she found herself wondering if, somewhere beneath the champagne and impulsivity of the previous night, she had wanted this too, wanted to be chosen, to step into a life so different from the constant struggle of the past 3 years. 6 months, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. And then I walk away with enough to secure Lily's future? Dominic's lips curved into a smile that was equal parts triumph and promise. 6 months, he agreed, to see if Mrs. Russo suits you. Emma had the distinct feeling she'd just made a deal with the devil. The question was, would she survive it with her heart intact? 3 weeks into their marriage, Emma stood in the massive kitchen of Dominic's Manhattan penthouse, staring at her phone in disbelief. On the screen was a text message from her mother. Someone just offered to buy our house for double its value in cash, said they represent an interested party. Is this your new husband's doing? Emma set the phone down with trembling hands. When she'd agreed to Dominic's 6-month arrangement, she'd expected to live in his Las Vegas residence, while making occasional public appearances as Mrs. Russo. Instead, within 48 hours of their wedding, She'd found herself on his private jet, bound for New York, calling her clients to explain an unexpected family situation that required her immediate relocation. Lily had joined them a week later, brought to New York by Emma's reluctant mother. The 5-year-old had adapted to their new circumstances with the resilience of childhood, delighted by her massive bedroom filled with more toys than she'd ever seen, and the private preschool where she was already making friends. But this, buying her childhood home out from under her mother, crossed a line. "Is there a problem?" Dominic's voice came from behind her. He stood in the kitchen doorway, impeccable as always in a tailored suit, despite it being Saturday morning. "Did you try to buy my mother's house?" Emma demanded. Something flickered across Dominic's face. Not guilt, exactly, but acknowledgement. "I thought she might be more comfortable in a newer property, one without stairs given her arthritis." Emma gaped at him. "How do you know about her arthritis? Have you been investigating my family?" "I investigate everyone who comes into my life," Dominic replied matter-of-factly. "It's necessary in my position." "Your position as what? A businessman or something else entirely?" It was the closest Emma had come to directly confronting the rumors about his family's connections. Dominic's expression hardened. "Be careful, Emma." "Or what?" She stepped closer to him, anger overriding her usual caution. "You'll make me disappear. Is that what happens to wives who ask too many questions?" For a moment, genuine shock registered on Dominic's face, quickly replaced by a cold fury Emma had never seen before. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. "I have never, would never harm a woman, least of all my wife. The fact that you would suggest it tells me how little you understand about me or the code I live by." Emma refused to back down. "Then help me understand, Dominic. Because so far all I know is that I'm married to a man who controls everything around him, has mysterious meetings at all hours, and whose associates look like they stepped out of a mob movie." Dominic was silent for a long moment, studying her with those inscrutable dark eyes. Finally, he seemed to come to a decision. "Get dressed," he said. "There's something I need to show you." An hour later, they were in his Bentley, driving through neighborhoods of Manhattan that Emma had never seen, areas that grew progressively less polished as they continued east. Dominic's security detail followed in a separate car, but for once, they were alone. "Where are we going?" Emma asked, watching as tenement buildings replaced high-rises. "To see the beginning," Dominic answered cryptically. They pulled up in front of a modest Italian restaurant with a faded awning. Russo's was emblazoned across it in peeling gold letters. Inside, the restaurant was empty except for an elderly man wiping down tables. The man looked up as they entered, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Dominic, che sorpresa!" His eyes fell on Emma and his smile widened. "E questa è la tua nuova moglie? Bellissima." "Nonno, this is Emma," Dominic said, his voice softer than Emma had ever heard it. "Emma, this is my grandfather, Giorgio Russo." The old man embraced Emma warmly, then led them to a corner table, shouting orders to the kitchen in rapid Italian. Soon, food began arriving. Dishes Emma hadn't ordered, but that smelled heavenly. "My grandfather came to America with nothing," Dominic said as they ate. "He opened this restaurant in 1952. It was the first Russo business in America." Giorgio nodded proudly. "Hard times then. Very hard for Italians. Some people, they don't want to rent to us, sell to us. Banks, they don't give loans. So he found other ways," Dominic continued. "Yes, he made some alliances that wouldn't stand legal scrutiny. Yes, there was protection money, gambling, other enterprises. He did what was necessary for his family to survive in a country that saw him as less than human." Emma listened, seeing the fierce pride in both men's eyes. "But my father wanted legitimacy," Dominic went on. "He took the money my grandfather made and invested it in real estate, then casinos when they became legal in Vegas. He walked the line between the old world and the new." "And you?" Emma asked quietly. Dominic's eyes met hers directly. "I've completed the transition. Every business I own is legitimate, every tax paid, every regulation followed to the letter." He paused. "But I don't forget where we came from, or the loyalties that got us here. My security isn't for show, Emma. There are still families who remember old grudges, competitors who would use any weakness against me." "Like a quickie divorce?" Emma surmised. Dominic nodded. "In my world, marriage is forever. A divorce, especially so soon, would be seen as weakness, instability. It would invite challenges I can't afford right now, not with the expansion into Macau at such a critical stage. For the first time, Emma felt she was seeing the real Dominic Russo, not just the controlling businessman or the dangerous figure of rumor, but a man carrying the weight of generations on his shoulders. After lunch, instead of returning to the penthouse, Dominic directed his driver to a rundown area of Brooklyn. They stopped in front of a community center, with children playing basketball in a fenced court. "The Russo Family Community Center," Emma read from the sign. "This neighborhood raised my father," Dominic explained as they walked inside. "Now we give back." Inside, the center was a hive of activity: after-school programs, ESL classes, a medical clinic. Staff greeted Dominic with obvious affection, not the fearful deference Emma had observed elsewhere. Children ran up to him, and to Emma's surprise, he knew many by name. One little girl, about Lily's age, tugged on Dominic's suit jacket. "Mr. Dominic, did you bring the books you promised?" He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his severe features. "In the car, Sophia. And I brought something else too." He glanced at Emma. "This is my wife. She's very good at stories." Before Emma could protest, she was surrounded by children, being led to a reading corner. Dominic watched from the doorway, something unreadable in his expression as she began reading from a picture book someone thrust into her hands. Later, as they walked back to the car, Emma asked, "Why did you bring me here?" "Because you needed to see that there's more to me than the rumors you've heard," Dominic said simply. "And because I wanted to see if my instincts about you were correct." "What instincts?" "That beneath that careful, controlled exterior beats a passionate heart. That you're not just a devoted mother, but a woman with fire in her soul." His gaze was intense, personal in a way that made her breath catch. Was I wrong? Emma couldn't answer. The truth was, she'd spent so long being just a mother, just trying to survive, that she'd forgotten there was anything else to her. The next morning, Emma woke to find Dominic already gone. A business trip to Chicago, according to the note left on his pillow. She was surprised to feel a twinge of disappointment. Their arrangement might be temporary, but something had shifted during yesterday's revelations. She found herself wanting to know more about the complex man she'd married. Emma spent the day with Lily, exploring Central Park and enjoying the unseasonably warm spring weather. As they walked back to the penthouse, her daughter skipping beside her, Emma's phone rang with an unknown number. "Mrs. Russo?" a woman's voice asked when Emma answered. "Yes, this is Emma." She still wasn't used to her new surname. "This is Bellevue Hospital. Your husband has been admitted to the emergency room." Emma's heart stuttered. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's stable, but asking for you. That's all I can say over the phone." With trembling hands, Emma called Dominic's head of security, who arranged for a car immediately. After getting Lily settled with the nanny, Emma rushed to the hospital, her mind racing with possibilities. Had there been an accident, or something more sinister? The challenges Dominic had mentioned. At the hospital, she was escorted past the main waiting area to a private room guarded by two of Dominic's security team. Inside, Dominic lay in a hospital bed, his normally impeccable appearance marred by a bandage around his head and a cast on his left arm. "What happened?" Emma gasped, rushing to his side. Dominic's eyes, clouded with pain medication, focused on her face. "Car accident. Nothing serious." But the grim expressions of his security team told a different story. One of them, Marco, followed Emma into the hallway when she went to speak with the doctor. "It wasn't an accident," he said quietly, once they were alone. "The brake lines were cut. Professional job." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "Who would do that?" Marco's expression was guarded. "There are rumors that the Calabrese family isn't happy about the Macau deal. They feel they should have been included." "Calabrese," Emma repeated. The name meant nothing to her, but the implications were clear. This wasn't just business rivalry. This was the dangerous world Dominic had inherited. "Mr. Russo wouldn't want me telling you this," Marco added. "He's protective of you." "Why?" "I'm just part of a business arrangement." Marco gave her a look that suggested he knew better. "I've worked for Mr. Russo for 15 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." That night, Emma stayed at Dominic's hospital bedside, sending his surprised security team home. When he woke around midnight, his eyes clouded with pain and medication, He seemed startled to find her there. "You should be home with Lily," he murmured. "She's fine. The nanny is staying overnight." Emma hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Was it really an accident, Dominic?" His eyes sharpened, the fog of medication receding. "Who told you otherwise? Does it matter? Is this the life you live? Constant danger, looking over your shoulder?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "It's rare. Most of my enemies are more subtle. They attack through business, legal channels. Most of them," Emma repeated. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "I need to think about Lily. If someone's targeting you, she could be in danger too." "No one would dare touch my family," Dominic said, his voice hardening despite his weakened state. "But if you're concerned, I'll increase security around both of you." Emma turned back to him, really seeing him for perhaps the first time. Not as the intimidating Mafia boss of rumors, nor as the controlling businessman, but as a man fighting to protect what he'd built while trying to escape the shadows of his family's past. "Why me, Dominic?" she asked softly. "With everything at stake, why risk it all on a marriage to a stranger?" Dominic's eyes met hers, and in them she saw an unexpected vulnerability. "Because when you fell asleep on my shoulder on that plane, completely trusting, I realized how long it had been since anyone had been simply themselves with me. No agenda, no fear, no manipulation." He paused. "And then in Vegas, watching you laugh with your friends, seeing your joy, I wanted that in my life. Even if only for 6 months. The raw honesty in his voice struck Emma to her core. This arrangement had begun as a business transaction, protection and financial security in exchange for the appearance of a stable marriage. But something real was growing between them, something neither had anticipated. As dawn broke over the Manhattan skyline, Emma realized with a mixture of excitement and fear that she was falling for her husband, a man whose world posed dangers she was only beginning to understand. 2 months later, Emma stood in the doorway of Lily's bedroom in Dominic's Hamptons estate, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, surrounded by stuffed animals. The summer night was warm, and through the open windows came the distant sound of waves breaking on the private beach. Security personnel patrolled the grounds, their presence now a normal part of their lives. In the 12 weeks since their impulsive Vegas wedding, Emma's world had transformed completely. Her interior design business, once struggling in Pennsylvania, now had a waiting list of elite Manhattan clients eager to work with Mrs. Russo. Her mother had indeed moved into a new, luxurious single-story home, though she still grumbled about blood money when she thought Emma couldn't hear. And Dominic. Dominic had become something Emma had never expected, a partner. Since the hospital, something had shifted between them. The business arrangement remained, but alongside it grew a genuine relationship, tentative at first, then deepening with each passing day. Emma closed Lily's door softly and made her way downstairs, where Dominic waited on the terrace overlooking the ocean. He stood as she approached, ever the gentleman despite the intimacy that had developed between them. "Is she asleep?" he asked, pouring Emma a glass of wine. "Finally. She's excited about the beach tomorrow." Emma accepted the glass, their fingers brushing. "She asked if you'd build sandcastles with her." A smile touched Dominic's lips. Those genuine smiles that had once been rare but now appeared more frequently. "I'll have to brush up on my architectural skills. Russo sandcastles have exacting standards." Emma laughed, settling into the chair beside him. In these private moments, it was easy to forget the complexity of their situation. The marriage begun as a business arrangement, the dangerous world Dominic navigated, the ticking clock on their agreement. 3 more months, and she would be free to walk away with the generous settlement he'd promised. The thought, once a comfort, now filled her with an unexpected hollowness. "You're quiet tonight," Dominic observed, his dark eyes studying her face in the way that still made her heart race. "Second thoughts about the charity gala tomorrow?" The Russo Family Foundation's annual summer gala was the social event of the season, with New York's elite paying thousands for the privilege of attending. It would be Emma's first major public appearance as Mrs. Russo. "Just nervous," she admitted. "All those people watching, judging. They'll be enchanted," Dominic said with quiet confidence. "Just be yourself. That's who I married, after all." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Their marriage certificate might have been signed in a haze of champagne and impulse, but what had grown between them since was real, though neither had found the courage to name it. The ringing of Dominic's phone shattered the moment. He checked the screen, his expression immediately hardening into the one Emma thought of as his business face. "I need to take this," he said, already standing. Emma nodded, used to these interruptions. Dominic moved to the far end of the terrace, speaking in low, rapid Italian. Even without understanding the words, Emma could tell from his tense posture that something was wrong. When he returned, the warmth had vanished from his expression. "I need to go into the city tonight, business that can't wait. At 11 p.m. on a Friday?" Emma couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. Dominic's eyes flashed with something, not anger, but perhaps regret. "It's better if you don't ask questions about this, Emma." The wall between them, momentarily lowered, slammed back into place. This was the pattern they'd fallen into. Moments of genuine connection interrupted by Dominic's other life, the one he kept carefully separated from her and Lily. "Fine," she said, standing abruptly. "Enjoy your business meeting. I'm going to bed." She was halfway to the door when Dominic caught her arm, turning her to face him. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Emma," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Trust me, please." Something in his tone gave her pause. This wasn't just another mysterious business matter. Something was truly wrong. Fear curled in her stomach. "Are you in danger?" she whispered. His hesitation was answer enough. "Just stay here with Lily. Marco will double the security tonight. I'll be back by morning." After he left, Emma found sleep impossible. She paced the massive beach house, checking on Lily repeatedly, jumping at every sound from outside. Around 3 a.m., unable to stand the waiting any longer, she went downstairs to make tea. In the kitchen, she found Marco, Dominic's head of security, speaking urgently into his phone. He ended the call when he saw her. "Mrs. Russo," he acknowledged with a nod. "You should be resting." "Where is he, Marco?" Emma demanded. "And don't tell me it's just business." Marco's stoic expression faltered. "Mr. Russo wouldn't want me to worry you." "I'm already worried, please." After a moment of internal struggle, Marco sighed. "There's been a threat. The Calabresi family again, more direct this time. Mr. Russo went to meet with them, to negotiate." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "Negotiate? With the people who tried to kill him?" "It's complicated," Marco said, obviously uncomfortable. "There are old alliances, codes of conduct. I don't care about codes of conduct." Emma's fear erupted into anger. "He could be walking into a trap. Mr. Russo knows what he's doing. He's been handling these situations his whole life." But Emma wasn't listening anymore. A terrible realization was dawning. In these 3 months, she had fallen in love with Dominic Russo, not the businessman, not the rumored Mafia boss, but the man who read stories to Lily, who showed her his grandfather's restaurant, who looked at Emma like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. And now he might not come home. "Where did they meet?" she demanded. Marco's expression turned alarmed. "Mrs. Russo, you can't possibly—" "Where, Marco?" Perhaps it was the authority in her voice, so like Dominic's, or perhaps Marco recognized the determination in her eyes. Whatever the reason, he relented. "The old Calabresi restaurant in Little Italy. But Mr. Russo left strict instructions that you're to stay here, protected." Emma was already heading for the stairs. "Call the helicopter. Tell them to prepare for takeoff." "Mrs. Russo, Emma, please," Marco called after her. "This isn't your world. You don't understand what you'd be walking into." She turned back to him, her eyes flashing with a fire that surprised even her. "You're wrong, Marco. The moment I married him, it became my world too, and I understand one thing perfectly. I'm not losing him." 90 minutes later, the Russo family helicopter touched down on a Manhattan helipad. Against all protocols and despite Marco's continued protests, Emma had insisted on going to the city. She'd left Lily in the care of the nanny and Marco's most trusted security team, with strict instructions to move them to a secure location if she didn't call by dawn. Now, as dawn approached, Emma sat in the back of a sleek black car, heading toward Little Italy. She wore a simple black dress and Dominic's oversized coat, hastily grabbed as she left. A poor disguise, but the best she could manage. "Mrs. Russo, please reconsider," Marco said from beside her. "If something happens to you, Mr. Russo would never forgive me, or himself." "Nothing's going to happen," Emma said with more confidence than she felt. "I'm just going to remind my husband that he has a family waiting for him." The restaurant was dark when they arrived, but two large men stood outside, clearly guards. Marco cursed under his breath. "Calabrese security," he muttered. "This is worse than I thought." "Wait here," Emma said, reaching for the door handle. Marco caught her arm. "Absolutely not. If you insist on this madness, I'm coming with you." Together they approached the restaurant. The guards immediately stepped forward, blocking their path. "Private meeting," one of them growled. "Move along." Marco spoke in rapid Italian, gesturing toward Emma. The guards exchanged glances, then one of them spoke into a small radio. After a tense moment, he nodded and stepped aside. "They're in the back room," he said. "No weapons." Marco surrendered his gun reluctantly, then led Emma through the darkened restaurant to a door at the rear. He knocked once, then opened it without waiting for an answer. The scene inside froze Emma's blood. Dominic sat at one end of a long table, facing an older man with silver hair and cold eyes. Between them lay a gun, a clear threat. Several men stood around the room, all watching with hard expressions. Dominic's eyes widened when he saw Emma, shock and fear replacing his carefully controlled expression. "Emma, what are you doing here?" The silver-haired man, presumably Calabrese, looked at Emma with undisguised curiosity. "So this is the famous new Mrs. Russo," he said, his accent thicker than Dominic's. "The one you married so suddenly in Vegas." Emma lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. "Yes, I am, and I've come to take my husband home." A murmur ran through the room. Calabrese's eyebrows rose. "Brave little thing, aren't you? But you've interrupted important business, Mrs. Russo." "No," Emma said, surprising herself with her steadiness. "I've interrupted a threat against my family, and that ends now." She moved to Dominic's side, placing her hand on his shoulder. Under her fingers she could feel the tension in his body, coiled like a spring. "You think you understand what's happening here?" Calabrese asked, amusement lacing his tone. "This isn't one of your interior decorating consultations, Bella. This is men's business." "I understand perfectly," Emma replied. "You're threatening my husband because you feel cheated out of the Macau deal. You tried to kill him once and failed, so now you're trying intimidation." Calabrese's amusement vanished. His eyes, cold and calculating, assessed her with new interest. "Dominic, you've either married a very brave woman or a very foolish one." "Both, perhaps," Dominic said, his voice tight with controlled rage. Not at Emma, she realized, but at the situation she'd placed herself in. "But she's right about one thing. This ends now." He stood, positioning himself slightly in front of Emma. "My wife and daughter are not part of this world, Calabrese. They are absolutely off-limits. To you, to everyone. If anything happens to either of them, there will be no negotiation, no second chances. Do you understand me?" The threat in his voice was unmistakable. For a tense moment, the room was silent, the two men locked in a silent battle of wills. Then, unexpectedly, Calabrese laughed. "Madonna mia," the great Dominic Russo tamed by love. He shook his head, still chuckling. "Your grandfather would be proud, you know. Family above all. That was always his way, too." The tension in the room eased fractionally. Calabrese gestured to one of his men, who removed the gun from the table. "Take your brave wife home, Dominic," Calabrese said, rising from his chair. "We'll discuss Macau another time. Perhaps with lawyers present, yes? More civilized." The drive back to the helipad passed in tense silence. Only when they were safely in the air, Manhattan shrinking beneath them, did Dominic finally speak. "What you did tonight was incredibly dangerous," he said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "If Calabrese had been in a different mood, if he'd wanted to make an example—" "I know," Emma interrupted, "but I couldn't just wait at home, not knowing if you were coming back." Dominic's expression softened. He reached across the space between them, taking her hand in his. "Why, Emma? Why risk everything?" The question hung between them, the real meaning clear. Why risk everything for a marriage that was supposed to be temporary, for a business arrangement with an expiration date? Emma met his gaze directly. "Because somewhere between Vegas and now this stopped being an arrangement for me," she said softly. "Because I realized I don't want to leave in 3 months. Because I love you, Dominic Russo, all of you, even the parts that terrify me." The raw emotion that crossed Dominic's face made her breath catch. He moved to sit beside her, cradling her face in his hands. "I never expected you," he whispered. "I thought I was getting a convenient wife, a business solution." Instead, I found the other half of myself. His thumbs brushed her cheeks gently. I love you, Emma. I think I have since you fell asleep on my shoulder that day on the plane. So trusting, so genuine. So, what happens now? Emma asked, her heart racing. Is this still temporary? Dominic's eyes, usually so guarded, were completely open to her now. That depends entirely on you. I want you and Lily in my life permanently, as my family, not as an arrangement. But my world is complicated, sometimes dangerous. I would understand if you chose a simpler life. Emma thought of the past 3 months, the whirlwind of changes, the luxury and privilege, but also the security guards and midnight phone calls. She thought of Lily, thriving in her new schools and activities. She thought of Dominic with her daughter, patiently building sandcastles and reading bedtime stories. And she thought of herself, how she'd rediscovered parts of herself that had been buried under years of struggle and survival. How with Dominic she felt fully alive for the first time in years. I choose you, she said simply. All of you, complicated world included. As the helicopter carried them back to the Hamptons, where Lily would be waking soon, Emma realized that their impulsive Vegas wedding, begun as a drunken mistake and continued as a business arrangement, had somehow transformed into the greatest adventure of her life. 6 months later, in a small ceremony at Dominic's grandfather's restaurant, Emma and Dominic renewed their vows, this time fully sober, fully aware, and deeply in love. As Lily scattered rose petals down the makeshift aisle and Giorgio Russo beamed proudly from his seat of honor, Emma reflected on the strange path that had led her here. She had fallen asleep on a Mafia boss's shoulder and woken up married to him in Vegas. But the real miracle wasn't that impulsive wedding. It was the love that had grown from it, strong enough to bridge 2 different worlds and create a family more precious than either of them could have imagined.